We're here now with another mayor candidate, Brent Hoffman. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.
And first off, could you tell us a little more about yourself?
Sure. I was born in Sioux City, grew up in Anthon, small town not far from here, graduated Anthon High School, served a 20-year military career in the Air Force, and my wife and I decided to move back here to Iowa and to our hometown to raise our kids some years ago. I'm now a real estate contractor, investor, and real estate agent. Own a company called Hoffman REI. My wife's name is Mary Jo. We have 2 kids, Silas and Lydia. Consumes a lot of our time. Also involved with a good bit of public service and community service, which is what brings me here with you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, for the big question, why are you running for the Sioux City mayor's position?
Well, it always seems to be the first question. That makes sense. I'm running a number of citizens in the community kind of came together and recruited me, if you will, and led a petition drive. Very flattering to me. Wasn't something I had originally considered, in fact, but many people do feel I have the right qualifications and experience to do a good job of it. I do have some ideas, of course, and an agenda hopeful to move the city even more forward in progress than we have in the past years. So in essence, I'm running for mayor because I'm hopeful to do a good job of it, to work hard at it, and to continue to move the city forward in progress.
Okay. Now, what are some of your goals for the city?
First goal, I think Sioux City is often an underappreciated city, even by its citizens, its residents. We've seen a lot of progress in the past few years. Last year alone, we added 900 jobs, which is the single largest job increase in the past decade. The unemployment rate has dropped nearly 2 points over the past 3 years. So there's a lot of progress in the city, and I think people can see that the city is moving forward. Downtown is largely being revitalized, so it's important to me that we see some improvements and some acknowledgement of that people feel proud in the progress they're seeing in Sioux City. That said, our city can always be better. And any city that thinks it's perfect and that it relies and rests on its laurels as a great place is very foolhardy. You have to be looking forward with a long-term vision. And I think ultimately we have to work harder to improve our economy, to bring more high-paying jobs to our community, to drive down the property tax burden for our taxpayers in this community that will instill and encourage some investment in the community. And then also I'd like to see some improvements in infrastructure as well as some continued citizen involvement and accountability on the part of the council and the mayor.
Okay, now being involved with the Sioux City Council, talk more about the infrastructure as far as like future development and what's going on right now with that.
Well, sure. We've just since the first of the year, we've had 45 economic development projects. Some get a little more attention in the media and the citizenry than others, but there's been over 3,700 jobs just in the past year or two that have expanded or that we've retained, largely through a lot of the council's efforts. We're working hard to improve our streets, our sewer and water lines, upgrade our sewer wastewater treatment plant. So a lot of infrastructure improvements like that. We're hoping to set the stage, and in conjunction with the I-29 reconstruction, we think Sioux City is ideally poised to just take another great leap in progress that we haven't seen in some decades. And I really think Sioux City is going to start growing at dramatic rates and really see a swell of pride and enthusiasm about what the city can do.
Okay, and so how do you think the city is doing so far, and is there a need for improvement?
Well, that goes to my earlier point, I think, that any city can always improve. Whether you're a family, a church, a federal government, or a local government, you must always be looking to, can we do things better? Can we spend the taxpayer dollars more wisely? Can we cut here? Can we improve here and add capital improvements here? So there's no doubt that Sioux City is a great place. That's without question. But we must also acknowledge that we can always get better in the areas of that property tax burden, for instance, in the area of improving our economy, expanding the job space. So we have some work to do in a few areas.
Okay. Now, Brent, so how do you relate to the current mayor, Craig Berenstein's actions and ideas?
Well, very well. I get asked that a number of times. As a matter of fact, I had a citizen just the other day that said, I'm going to vote for you, Mr. Hoffman, because you most remind me of Craig Berenstein. And I took that as a very high compliment. Craig Berenstein and I actually have a very similar style, that we believe it's important that you treat people with kindness and respect, even if they don't always treat you in kind. We view it as a job that requires professionalism and decisiveness, building consensus within the council members. So I think many citizens see that Craig and I have a very similar style. I think, frankly, he's been an excellent mayor for the city, and I would aspire to do as good a job as Craig Berenstein would do. And were I be fortunate enough and blessed to be elected and look back on that tenure as having done as good a job as Craig Berenstein, that's something I'd take a lot of pride in.
Okay. Now, what are some ideas that you have for the city as far as bringing new jobs to the area?
Well, bringing new jobs oftentimes is viewed as an external marketing tool of some sorts, as if we're to recruit this particular Fortune 500 business, whether that be Northwest Airlines, which we are very successful with, or a whole host of other businesses, both interstate and external to our state, that we're always working on. But honestly, the majority of economic development occurs from within your community. Economic development specialists tell us, and experts on this, that typically the jobs growth in any given community, about 80 to 85% of that comes from within existing employers, companies that are already here. So what we can do, and in fact what we are doing, is visiting those businesses. I had 2 just last week, and it's like, what can we do as a city to help you? What can we do in improvements in infrastructure? Are you aware of this tax withholding jobs credit that we've lobbied for through the state? Can we interest you in the new markets tax credit that the federal government supplements, all at no cost to the taxpayers? And by simply sitting down and working with business leaders, the chambers and local companies, doing these visits and seeing these citywide infrastructure improvements, we have an opportunity for that to all kind of gel and come together. So those are some of the things I have in mind to encourage jobs growth in the community.
Now, should you become the next mayor of Sioux City, do you think you would get involved with things like the Girls Club Inc. as far as their new development?
Well, whether we like it or not, that's something that all members of the council right now are very much involved in, is Girls Inc. It's unfortunate that Girls Inc. Is just one example of the many projects that we do. I think the citizens' impression is that that's a done deal and that just happened and the city pushed that through. And in fact, at any given time, we have a whole host of nonprofit agency, business, and others that are working in the community, sometimes talking to staff, sometimes not, about whether they can relocate, whether the city can help them or not. And that became kind of a political football, if you will, and got a great deal of media attention as something controversial. But what I hear from the community at large is people do have reservations about putting a building, even a nonprofit, in a park. And we need to guard that very jealously, our green space in this community. I acknowledge that. Yet there are also a lot of positives with that project in serving girls who are currently on a waiting list, many of them disadvantaged, on really leading to improvements in that park in many ways, improving the safety and the overall long-term viability of that park. So those are a few of the pros and cons, and like anything in a political decision that the council makes, it's oftentimes multiple steps to get to that decision-making process. That's not a done deal. It may be within weeks. We still need to hear from the community and need to weigh the pros and cons and make a decision on it.
Okay. Now, how's your campaign been going so far?
Well, it's going fairly well. Like many things, when you have a family and you work, and we're dealing with some health concerns with my wife, but she's doing markedly better, it seems I'm never able to dedicate as much time to it as I would like. And that's difficult because you have to get out there and work. People expect that. So in the coming weeks, I will be working harder to get out there. And that's generally how I approach a campaign. Nothing unique. Sit and talk with a lot of people. More important, listen to them. Hear their ideas, hear their concerns, hear their issues. Then you're ultimately prepared to represent them, should you happen to be elected. I view it as a campaign is a training ground or an opportunity to learn how to be a good representative. Should I happen to win along the way, then that has prepared me to do so. That's how I approach campaigning.
Now, you were talking about some of the nonprofit organizations, like Siouxland Community Media. How do you think you could help make organizations like these grow?
Well, that's a good question, Tony. I find a lot of times it's just an issue of education, marketing, advertising. Matter of fact, we were talking earlier, frankly, I knew very little about Siouxland Community Media and what these fine college students do here any given week. So I think that I'm probably not in the minority in this community. Very few people are aware of what you do here. So it's an issue of informing them, educating them, partnering with nonprofits like you did here on the show earlier, partnering with the city and others to educate them about what this particular nonprofit brings to the table and can serve the larger community. That requires someone that's good at communicating, good at marketing, and I do have some skills in that area, and I'd be happy to help. I think we have many assets like this one in the community that often aren't taken advantage of, and we need to do that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Also, what do you think about the parks and recreations? Do you think we need to, the city needs to maybe build some new playground equipment, or do you think that's pretty good right now?
Another good question, and unfortunately on this one it just depends on who you ask and where you happen to live and what park you happen to utilize. Right now we have 58 parks in this city. About a fourth of those are dramatically underutilized, actually, and have some aging equipment. I'd like to see us focus much of our efforts on improving and bettering the parks that we do have, rather than building new parks. I'd also like to see some partnering with community clubs, whether that be Lions Club, Sertoma, Cosmopolitan Club, we were talking others, nonprofits, as we were talking before too, to see if they can partner with us and do some things, whether that be build that playground equipment, run a fundraiser, because property taxpayers need to know that consumes about 17% of their property tax dollar. So anytime you can do that, partnering, that sharing of costs, you drive down the tax burden, you improve and increase the economic climate that leads to those jobs, that grows the community, like we've been talking about. I always stay on message, don't I, Tony? Jobs, development, progress. And even parks and recreations ties back into that.
All right. Thanks so much, Brent, for being with us today, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you. I appreciate you. You did a good job.